So here we are at Cavustepe, one of the most important ancient sites for the Ararat civilization, as well as obviously the Urartians that came later. But this site, known as Hykaberg, has an ancient lineage, all the way back to Japheth and even the original Sumerian Ziusudra. So at this site, we're going to see two different peaks, one behind me right here, behind me, and then in front of me as well. Each of these two locations has ancient temples built on them. And what we're looking for right now are ancient artifacts and some of these basalt temples, like the Haldi Temple, that has evidence of the lost civilizations of Mount Ararat. Let's go see what we can find. Oh, wow. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Look at this. Wow. Wow, look at that. Look at that. So these are undoubtedly the builders that survived the Younger Dryas. Again, look, not basalt or andesite. Even though it's not the same stone, it's extremely finely done. Look at the cuts. Look at the polishing on these stones. It's very impressive, and the size also is quite incredible. These are, without a doubt, very impressive megaliths. But this right here, I believe, represents the survivors that tried to rebuild an ancient civilization, but they too succumbed to whatever disasters or whatever kinds of climatic changes or whatever it was. They too disappeared. And then the Urartians came about 3,000 years ago, and they found these ruins and they built on top of them. So what we're looking at is we're going to see a compilation of the three different cultures that have been here. We're going to try to identify all three and see what we can find for ancient artifacts. Here again, we see work of the survivors of the Ararat civilization that built these beautiful, beautiful megaliths here. And one of the things that I find fascinating is looks like we have evidence of extreme heat. This might be evidence of vitrification right here. You see how it fractured off right here and has a whole completely different color. It comes right down from the top of the stone and it works its way right through here. To me, that looks like evidence of some kind of disaster. Probably a coronal mass ejection or something like that that came and severely affected this site. Wow. This is cool. Wow. Andesite. Amazing. Notice no markings, no inscriptions, no cuneiform at all. Classic telltale signs of older lost civilizations that built this. Certainly not the Urartian work. They were unable to manipulate such stones. Beautiful. Look at this. This looks like one of the original basalt columns right here, sticking out of the ground. See this? Yeah, this is one of the original basalt columns. It's just sitting here. It's not even... There it is. Oh my God. Holy cow. You can't see this anywhere in the world. One of the most sacred artifacts, one of the most oldest sacred artifacts on earth, lying here, sitting here in ruin, covered in grass. This is what we're talking about a true expedition. This is not a public tourism site. We're uncovering real history here. Take a look at this. Massive, massive basalt column. Now notice, I saw the other one over there, and that's what tipped me off to this, because that's another piece that's there. Now there's another one right above it here. Amazing. Now, what I find fascinating is that these are completely ignored. They're away from the site. Basically, nobody cares about these. And what's fascinating is that these are the oldest remnants of the Ararat civilization right here. These are the original artifacts they carved at a beautiful basalt. This is over 1 ton, this artifact. Over 1 ton. Someday these will be in museums. And one day, society we'll understand the importance of these artifacts and how they link everything from Göbekli Tepe to Menorca, Spain, with these T-shaped pillars. I call them the Pillar of Ascension. And they basically have the totality of the teachings of the triptych higher knowledge 3 doorways within itself. Now, if you remember, we just got back from looking at the Vaughan Museum, and one of these is in the Vaughan Museum. So think about it for a minute. If you have an archaeological site and you have these artifacts in museums, why would some of them be just sitting in the field, just sitting out on a mountain and nobody cares about? That's what we're doing here. We're putting together lost history that's been ignored by archaeologists and forgotten. And it's our job to recreate the story once again, to put these pieces together and see how they fit. So what we have here is incredible. This area is riddled with these giant ascension pillars. We've now counted 5 in this one area, and I see 2 more up there, meaning that if you see the surrounding stone, all in a limestone, none of these are made out of basalt. So clearly, this is from a totally different time period. And I want to point out, 2 more on this upper wall here. All of these should be in a museum. This is truly a tragedy that some of the oldest and most ancient important artifacts that have to do with ascension teachings that passed around the world, all in a condensed form of the original Kef box relief and Ionis, they're right here. And they're sitting on the ground, and very few people even care about them. But someday these will all be in museums and they'll be appreciated by the world. But that's what we're here to do on this expedition, to uncover lost history and put the pieces back together. Let's go check out these other 2 on the ground. Oh, amazing, amazing. These 2 have been uncovered. They're not partially buried. This now makes 7. 7 of these ascension pillars we've found along this area. Just incredible. Look at the size of these. Solid basalt, these have to be 1 to 2 tons each. Absolutely massive, which thankfully is one of the reasons why they haven't been taken yet by somebody. But I'm truly telling whoever's listening to this as part of the archaeological world, these need to be preserved and protected. These need to go into a museum, and we need to absolutely come back here and truly excavate this place for real. Because what this is, you cannot find these artifacts like this anywhere in the world. This site has only been partially excavated and abandoned, and that's truly a tragedy. But that's why we're here doing this, to put these together back into the story where they belong, to understand it. Just amazing. Now, I want to point out, with these ascension pillars, we've mapped out 7 so far in this area. 7, which is absolutely incredible. But I want to explain these a little bit more. These actually are part of 2 pieces of these artifacts, these megaliths. They actually fit together, and they fit together with a bottom part that slides in the middle here and then comes out to form basically what this looks like, but on each side. So with these pillars of ascension with the 3 levels, 1, 2, 3, comes out with a T shape, and then basically the other stone right over here, and of course this one is, let's take a look at this, it's not even out of the ground yet, but this would be the bottom part of another pillar that would fit into that one. So when you find these, they're usually going to be in pairs of 2. And so like right back behind us here is another one, and now here's a great example of what the bottom looks like. See that? You can see how this bottom piece would slide in and fit into right here. Fit right inside this. 2 pieces together like that as an artifact. Now, how exactly those were displayed, how they were put into temples, we don't know. Because what we're seeing behind us is not the original builders that build these. None of that's left now. All that remains from the Ararat civilization are these pillars. Again, as I've reiterated many times, I believe that this work right here are the survivors of the Ararat civilization, not the Urartians, but the survivors that tried to rebuild. Now, what the original temple looked like with these ascension pillars, we may never know. But in order to do that, we have to try to excavate this area. So any archaeologists that are listening to this video, this entire area needs to be re-excavated. All of these pillars need to be removed and put into museums. And we need to understand the importance of this spot, because this place is the only place so far that we've seen these ascension pillars. And if they're here, it means that they came from a very sacred temple that was once right here in the hill that no longer remains. But what else is under the ground below our feet? The only way we're going to find out is if we actually get a concerted effort from groups of scientists and archaeologists that care about this history, care about our history, to try to put all these back together again. Those pillars. But so these are the original, look at see the work on these? These are the original basalt pillars from all that's left over the base of this temple. Everything else was built after. So these are the remnants. These are over 20,000 years old.
Wow.
And the only reason they've survived is because they're basalt and they're so hard they don't erode.
Yeah.
And you can see how much the stones around it. These are made out of limestone, and that's why they erode so heavily. Because these civilizations did not have the technology to manipulate these. They simply didn't. Also, where did these even get quarried from? They might have come from Mount Sufan. 50, 60 miles they had to quarry and move these basalt blocks all the way to here just to build this. Incredible. So here we have the top of Heikeberg, and what we have behind us is the Temple of Haldi. Paul, this is one of the things we came here for, my friend.
Absolutely.
One of the oldest temples, in my opinion, on Earth. Now, you'll notice one of the things that's very interesting is that the basalt is not on the base, and I believe that's because they had to rebuild it. The survivors that have those more finely cut limestone blocks came back and tried to rebuild this temple from some disaster that occurred here, that scattered those ascension pillars on the other side and left basically the ruins of the original era civilization. Paul, what do you think about this?
I'm really interested. I note exactly what you said about the rebuilding. I noted the different, the local stone at the bottom there that's easier to work with, and then the basalt above. So the question is, what did it survive? Was this the Scythians? Was this the Midians? Was it their attack? Or are we looking at something far, far older?
Right.
But when we get to the threshold, well, let's experience that together.
Yeah, and one of the questions I have is what could have destroyed entire temples up here? To me, that's not man. That's something like a massive tsunami or something that went through that just wiped away all the things that scattered them all over the place. And then, of course, I think the survivors and the builders came back and they tried to redo this again. And that's what we're going to see here right now, Paul. Let's go.
Right. So right here, we've just crossed the threshold. So you can feel it as you walk here, and if you look to the right, we've got something happening right here immediately. And you've got the sensation of the space even standing here.
Yeah, it's a sacred temple, one of the most sacred temples in the world.
So we've still got some shape that we can discern. We can see the perimeters.
Yeah.
We can see a structure here, a structure here, a structure here.
Yeah.
The inner sanctum.
Right, right. Temple of Haldi.
It's so recognizable.
It's got the same shape as Ionis too.
Absolutely. And a model for temples all around the world.
Right, right. Oh, this is so amazing. You know, I want to point out, I think one of the best piece of evidence to tell that the survivors came to try to rebuild is right here. Right here, you see that the original 3 pillars were destroyed. They were destroyed in the catastrophe, and then the rebuilders came back and they rebuilt these pieces right here. But look at the stones in the back. It's not the same work. The stones in the back are more primitive.
Yeah, here we are.
Wow. This is amazing. This is like, Martin, come check this out. Come feel how finely polished this basalt is. Over 20,000 years old, and feel that still. Unbelievable.
I'm feeling some type of like a
right?
energy source.
It's powerful.
It's powerful, isn't
right?
it? Right. It's like strange. It's like going through my dreams actually.
Imagine they hauled these all from Mount Sufan over 50 miles away to get these here and then shape them. Spectacular. Now here you can see a great example of the rebuilding work from the survivors right here. Still finely cut stones, but not basalt. Makes you wonder if the reason they didn't use basalt, not only because they couldn't manipulate it, but because they didn't have access to basalt. They would have had to go all the way to Mount Sufan to get more basalt to rebuild it, and they couldn't. And so they used the local stone here to try to rebuild this temple. And they tried to put it back together. So Saba, you were just talking about how not only could this basalt not be from 50 miles away from Mount Sufan because of the quality of the basalt, but it might be even further, right?
Yeah, even one of the theories, there is a mountain called Karacadağ, which is near Diyarbakir,
and they believe that the quality of the basalt stones from that mountain even higher. So one of the theory they might brought from the other.
So what you're saying is that these stones might have come from 350 miles away, which is wild to think about. Multi-ton basalt stones. First of all, how did they move them that far? How did they get them here? How did they transport them? It's a complete mystery. But that's why we're here, to explore this mystery.
And also, they have done such a fine work here. Sometimes I'm bringing some tours here, and I tell them, these are like, you know, from 850 BC, and they say, this is not possible. Probably this is a restoration they have done.
They don't even think it's real, right?
They don't even think it's real, but it's real. It's real, and then because they have done such a fine work, good work. And there are two types of the basalt stones, what we call it male and female stones. If you go to the city that I'm talking about, the other two, some of the basalt stones, they look like sponge. They have a lot of holes, and they call it female. But this is a male one.
Okay, that makes
This is
sense.
the hardest one.
So there's some porous, like a porous basalt. With okay, that's what we saw yesterday in the museum.
Quality of the stones, you know.
Yeah,
But these are
it's like a fine-grained basalt, right? Yeah.
Su kanalları açıyor ve su getiriyor buralara.
başka var mı?
Evet.
Bu kadar mı söyledin?
Hayır. Devam.
Tamam dur bir dakika çevireyim onu. He brought the water from Gogona. Gogona is there is like 35 kilometers further there is a little town. Even there is a castle originally built by the Urartian, they believe, and then one of the Kurdish dynasty called Süleyman, Blond Süleyman, he founded the city during the Silk Road. So they brought this water from Gogona to here, which is about 35 kilometers.
Meşdiye usuyla eşbiye ila eni mentusele sardiye bağ ve bahçelerle yemyeşil bir şehir meydana getiriyor.
With that water, he created beautiful gardens, beautiful fields with a lot of fruits and vegetables. Tamam.
Tamam mı?
Tamam.
Ya terabiti nebime eşbiye ini argıştı şeylanime. Bütün bunları babam bunlar argıştının anısına bu şeyleri yaptım.
I made all these things to the memory of my father, Argishti.
Ya. Eşbiye ila eni mentusele sardini men nişebimani eşve ulae ama o şey ini dingir halde. Bütün bunları Tanrı haldenin gücüyle ve gayretlerimizle diyor bunları yaptık, yere getirdik diyor.
I made all these with the power of God Haldi. So he helped me and done it. Continue.
Evet, işte ben yaptım bunları diyor.
I did it.
Men tusele eşbiye irmu, men nişebime u aşeni biya inişe. Şimdi Urartular kendilerine Biyaini demişler.
The Urartian called themselves Biani. Remember I mentioned the foreigners?
Urartu kelimesi Asur lisanında dağlık bölge, yüksek rakamlı yer anlamında.
According to the Assyrian language, Urartu means somewhere higher, somewhere mountain area.
Yani Asur'la Urartuları biraz aşağıya indirmek istiyor. Dağ insanı, dağ insanları.
So Assyrian sort of like they're trying to joke with the Urartian people because they were calling them, you are the people from the mountain.
Eştiselame entuşela ini eşbiyaniye ben nişerimani iyana bırakıyor. Benim yaptığım eserleri kırmayın, yıkmayın, bozmayın.
All my monuments, what I have done here.
Da silip başkasının da adını yazmayın. Bunları yapan olursa Tanrı halkının gazabına uğrasın diye.
Whatever I have made here, whatever I have built here, do not touch, do not destroy, do not break. Otherwise, God Haldi will punish you.
Yes. Yes. The celestial God Haldi, the great lowering of divinity from Ionis that was here as well. It's one of the fractal temples of Ionis.
And the giver of agronomy,
right,
which is named in the story.
Yeah, I love that, and I mean that's fascinating because think about it. He's talking about that god that's a god of fertility. The name is that. In Ionis, in the Kef temple, we see constant tree of lives with fertility symbols. Now, what is that necessarily? The fertility symbol represents balance, the continuation, kind of harmony and balance of all things, and so it's really interesting. But this is, of course, the entrance to the temple. But thank you for reading. That was amazing. Appreciate that.
Ben teşekkür ederim.
I thank you.
Wow. Here we are, we're still at Cavustepe, but we're above another peak on the ridge here. And this area shows not really the basalt and andesite that we see down below of the fine grain that is from the Ararat civilization, but looks like evidence of what I would call the survivors of the Ararat civilization that seem to be still building with very large stones. I don't think this is purely the Urartians. I think the Urartians are mixed in here. But I think what we're seeing is evidence of, again, that second culture that tried to come back to rebuild. And if we go over here, we're going to see an actual drill hole on the side of this. So here's what's left of a very beautiful, beautiful wall, a megalithic wall, and there's a drill hole from what, you know, we'd have to try to recreate what the purpose of this was, but one of the upper temples of the site. Still really incredible megaliths, fine work using the sedimentary stone, but again, they didn't have access to the basalt. They clearly weren't working with the same stone, and it's clear that they were part of a different culture. But let's see what we can find over the top of this hill. Beautiful up here in the flowers on the top of this. I guess this is where Cavustepe ends, but clearly a spectacular location for these great sacred temples above this fertile, ancient fertile volcanic valley that was really the agricultural heart of this civilization. Amazing stuff.